All right, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Longhouse, the weekly show for the sensible centrist. I wonder what we're going to talk about this week, Like Path, huh?
Yeah, I thought I was going to talk about some family stuff. Maybe we have some female psychology articles, and yeah, I don't know. What do you have? I can't think of anything just off the top of my head.
I was just going to read from Hegel, I think.
Poetry
Just
slam,
rip it.
meme reviews.
Yeah.
We could do maybe audience questions. I don't know. Yeah, of course, it's the Epstein files. And yeah, like you said, we get to not be late for something because it's continually unfolding and developing story with the sort of release of the Epstein's files, which was what was it last week? I feel like this is like the fastest week of the year, maybe of my life. Something about time that just compresses insanely
Yeah.
in February, which it should because it's a
It is
bad month.
also, one of the dreary months. I don't like February. I don't like, January usually gets nice snow, but by February where I live, it's by that time it starts transitioning into like sleet and rain, and then it's just sadness until May. If you're lucky, that's when spring arrives in full. So yeah, we're in for some hard times, really. So tonight we're going to talk about, obviously, as I said, put the title. It's that YouTube title of the X situation is crazy. So I wrote the Jeffrey situation is crazy because I was afraid that YouTube would like shadow ban the video if I used Epstein in the title. So we'll see if that works. But of course, we're gonna have to talk about Biggie, his files. Everyone and their dog is are in these files, and uh, yeah, we're gonna have to just have a talk about it. The take machine is doing its thing, and I guess we're gonna have to toss our own 2 cents into this. But we'll also talk a little bit about the Norwegian crown princess, some of our politicians probably, and their involvement in some of these things.
And isn't that the
Um,
most relevant angle for us? I mean, it would be
that is
weird
the most relevant
otherwise.
angle for us.
And
Yeah.
for some reason, like Norway seems to be the most disproportionately hard hit country from these files. Now,
Well,
maybe
you
I'm
say for
just
some reason, but I've said for a long time that our strategy has explicitly been to be, diplomatic and move in the elite circles as much as possible. So in one sense, this doesn't really surprise me. What does surprise me is, I guess, the lack of coordination and the competence in some of this. Unless, of course, if you believe some people on Twitter, every single word spoken is code, which, of course, that makes things different. But I don't have the cipher, so until we do,
I saw some tweets taking the piss out of that. Like they have one of these Epstein tweets where now this Epstein emails where he just says like, "Yeah, cool, I love the torture video," and it's like, "This is code for pizza" or something like that. The
I mean, that's one of the funniest observations that's come out of this is that this is just all over like Gmail. This like you got
yeah,
this, these like 4chan guys, oh, you have to have 7 VPNs and you have to use the Tor browser. And meanwhile, some socialite, who happens to have the right connections to get a bunch of money, just like sends emails a bunch of rich and powerful people about, do you wanna come have a good time with like 15-year-old girls? And they reply back, yes, please. Right? It's all over like unsecured emails.
yeah, but I mean, my read on that is that they likely have tiered communication. I don't mean that he's like digitally savvy, but that like these Gmails are more or less used for like logistics and
Yeah,
just shit talking shit, just like checking
I
in on
do
each
agree.
other.
Yeah.
And if they're going to talk about something like serious that is like in breach of the law or something, it's like it's going to be on the phone or in person
Mhm.
or something like that, where it's not traceable. But they will use email for just like, okay, I'm standing by the Empire State Building or something, come and pick me up,
Yes.
stuff, or how do you feel about that party or something, which
Yeah, yeah.
so there is something like the problem is the implication of a lot of this stuff. Like, it's not that there's a thousand smoking guns, but that there's a lot of stuff implied here that adds even more questions than I think people already had. And the people who should be answering are just silencing themselves,
Yeah.
hoping that this is going to go away. Which I don't think it will at this point. I feel like it's just reached critical mass. It's becoming like a household thing now. So
It is.
it's a great time to be a conspiracy theorist, not because they were right about anything, but because like they get to have the attention on these topics,
Yeah.
and they just kind of put the elites
I mean,
under
going
the
forward,
microscope.
this is sort of the big sort of, what now, right? Um, because when Epstein got jailed, obviously, the when he hang himself and hung himself, I guess. Hanged? What is the uh, conjuncture? I forget.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good question, actually. Um,
when he hung himself, let's say, in his cell, uh, it's obvious to say that this was an op, this was a job, because whatever was going to get revealed would be too toxic. Um, but the problem with that isn't just that it's it's toxic to a lot of powerful people. It's that this guy's network and was so insanely huge, and whether directed or not by some foreign intelligence, his job and his skill set was being incredible at, getting his fingers in as many cookie jars as possible. So when he goes down, he basically pulls almost half the elite of the world with him, essentially. So you get to ask yourself, are we willing to like go through that? We're just gonna say, you know what, we're gonna have a couple of scapegoats, and
so
then
a quick circling back here. The Google AI is telling me that it's hanged himself, not
okay.
hung.
Someone's
I don't
saying
know if that's
hanged means
reliable.
someone else did it to the hung person. Okay, so hung is the word.
Oh well,
Anyway,
maybe.
my point isn't to say that we should pardon any of this, right? I'm just saying, like, the practicality. If you look at a lot of the populism takes on this, it's just we have to drain the swamp, which is okay in theory, but what does actually draining the swamp look like in practice here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, just
I'm not
adding my
against it.
own.
I'm just like, I don't see any solutions to whatever's going on right now. I don't see the path forward yet.
There's no quick fixes at all. It's just like a bit of a mess. But just adding my 2 cents on that suicide in jail situation. I've not been a speculant in that area, and sort of just accepted the idea of the suicide. But like, after I've saw the interview video, like with Steve Bannon did with
Mhm.
Jeffrey
Yeah, I saw it too.
Epstein, I'm a little bit more skeptical, honestly, if this was an actual suicide, because it just doesn't give the impression of a guy who would do that. Um, for context, like in this video, it's been filmed in 2019 or something,
Yeah, something like
2018,
that.
where they're, I don't know if like Bannon is trying to rehabilitate his image or just generate some, clicks to his, for his online content or whatever. But he tries to prod Jeffrey Epstein about like that underage prostitute conviction that he just had. And he just keeps
Mhm.
asking him like, well, what did you think? Like, you're sitting in jail during the financial crisis and everything is going wrong, and you don't have a phone, nobody's talking to you, and the only thing that's going on is like the prison guards are asking you for financial advice. And he just like, it's like he doesn't understand the question, which I found just sort of interesting. He just sort of pivots to starts talking about something else. He doesn't really. He seems completely kind of uninterested in talking about
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I was in jail for that, or yeah, whatever. It's like, who cares? I'll just find some way out of that anyway. And having that mentality that, yeah, it's the kind of guy who was like bankrupted 10 times, you know,
I
and
mean,
then
this this
he'll make it big
this is a
the 11th.
guy, who, and I think I talked to you a little bit about this on Telegram, um, which is sort of like reading a lot of the emails, reading a lot of the messages he's sending back and forth to individuals. Of course, not all of this is at the same time, but over periods of time, it gives the um, it gives the impression that this is very much like a social chameleon type of guy, right? He's got one personality that's on when the camera is on. He's got one personality when he's talking to Bannon. He's got one personality when he's talking to our crown princess, right? And he's really good at, he's the big the big performer juggling 100 knives at once, right? And it's very cool to see when he's doing it. But of course, if he drops one of them, he dies probably, right? Um, that's the impression I get. I'm not sure what you're thinking.
Yeah, no, I don't know actually if he had like that many personalities, but I just think that the personality that he does have has a certain appeal to elite figures, especially.
All
Like
right.
there's a certain combination of disarmament. I think I tweeted about this, that it's very, the people have commented that he sounds like Woody Allen with like slightly more swagger, which he does is like this sort of dewy, slightly nasal voice, but at the same time, it's quite
Right. I
relaxing
think
to listen to
maybe
him, right?
I didn't mean personalities in that sense, right? Some people are like, I didn't mean he has split personalities, like it's a Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation, right? I was just saying he's very good at sort of knowing who he's talking to. That's the best way I can put it, right? Just the voice he chooses to use with person A is not the voice he uses with person B, which is obviously something we all do, I suppose, right? It's just that he was very proficient at it.
Yeah, but I just generally think he was a sort of, he was able to balance the idea of being disarming in a sense, which is quite sneaky, because if you have a person like that who does not come across as threatening, who's a bit sort of intellectual and a
Sure.
bit
Yeah.
understated and sort of friendly and kind of comfortable, it's so much easier to sneak in this kind of nefarious things, because it's a little bit funny, it's just a little bit charming, and he could probably like suggest, some guy like that, and he could probably suggest to you, like, just based on his read, okay, maybe you would like a drug or something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's just like a little bit taboo. Like maybe you want cocaine. Okay, he'll just suggest that to you subtly. And if you're on with that, then he will just give you a little bit more. Like I know these girls that like to party, and if you like that, then he will just introduce something else, until it's like, yeah, this is like my best friend or whatever. Like, oh yeah, I can't wait to hang out again. Like this guy it will just fix me up with anything that that I like, or that's sort of how I think this works. I mean, I'm not sure, because you have different strokes for different folks, but I think like for like this type of like global homo elite person, this is like a really effective kind of strategy, kind
Yeah,
of
sure. Yeah.
hiding in plain sight type of
Mhm.
guy, essentially, who he just doesn't come across as predatorial. When you look at him, he seems like very cautious, understated in many ways. So at least that's my read on him. I think it's very common, like after the fact, when people learn about everything that's happened, that you look at him through that lens, and you just sort of see like horns coming out or whatever. But I just listen to him talk, and like it's like Woody Allen with slightly more confidence, right? But even like Woody Allen himself is also a predator, right? But not to the same degree, but he has the exact sort of same qualities of like being able to sell himself into slightly intellectual people, and just getting them hooked into various vices. Of course,
Mm.
there's this other question as well, as to how, like, to what degree do these people know that they're being that they're doing this? Like, how much are they willingly participating? That's also
Yeah.
a big question here, because like when you're getting to all of these Norwegian top diplomats and Norwegian royalty, and it's like, are they as bad? This is what I'm asking myself. Like, are they as immoral as this guy, or are they sort of just like being duped? Are they the ones being compromised essentially?
Yeah, like where on the
So
scale is Stephen Hawking in this, right?
yeah, exactly. Like, are they just like genuinely sort of naive people who just get hooked in this kind of trap where that's like, okay, now I have footage of you with like 15-year-olds or whatever, or is this something that they're like they see as a transactional relationship where they can offer him access and he gives them, access to whatever fun hedonistic pleasures that they like.
Fun, not just that, probably like an insane network, right?
Yeah, and money as well, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he
Yeah,
borrowed
a lot of
money
them got
to a
just
lot of
money from
these.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just borrowed the money to buy houses and like use real estate in
And that's like
California and stuff. So
the other thing that was like going through my head, uh, reading a lot of this is, some people are saying, whatever Epstein was doing, he was doing it at the behest of someone else. Like this was basically a one big honeypot, right? To trap people. Some are saying that he was a fall guy. I mean, I'm open to basically all at this point. I think we should be open to all sorts of conspiracy theories. But what I'm seeing from a lot of the emails is giving me the feeling of it's a bit of a Reddit sentence, but there's this idea that for some conspiracy theorists, the conspiracy theory is comforting because the alternative is that everything is just, assholes and chaos. But a lot of these emails are assholes and chaos, right? It's just people who are opportunistic and grabbing for power or money or whatever, right?
yeah, I mean, the thing is that it's so much information out there right now that's been dumped into these files
Yeah,
that
that's what I mean. I mean,
if
this
you
changes
have
every day,
if
right?
you have like a specific lens that you want to look at this for and you search, you're going to find things that confirm that. But that also requires that you're going to ignore a lot of stuff that might not be completely in line with whatever preconceptions you had about this guy. There's just so many sort of weird surprises about how these people interact behind the scenes and what their private beliefs are and stuff. Like, I think one of the bigger surprises for me is like this kind of Steve Bannon, Noam Chomsky friendship that I don't even know what to make of it. Like, they're friends privately behind the scenes and they're sharing like the right stuff articles about like blacks having low IQ or something. Like, this is really difficult to process. Like, I'm
Talking
trying
about how
to,
Europeans are all gay or whatever.
yeah, yeah, how it's like the 2008 crisis was manufactured to loot Greece or something.
But see, this is what I mean with Epstein being a bit of a chameleon here, is that I don't think we have access to everything he wrote to Bannon, but I'm pretty sure they never talked about meditation, right?
No,
Uh,
absolutely.
so and then you look at how he's talking to our crown princess, for example. She's like telling him like I really want to smoke, and then he just talks about like opening your inner eye for like 2 paragraphs or something. So I mean, he can certainly turn on the bullshit when he
Yeah,
needs to, is what I'm
there's a sort
saying.
of breadth. What do you? But this is like this very typical. I don't know, this sort of Jewish quality. It's like breadth over depth,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
And where it's like it's a mile wide and an inch deep when he's talking about.
exactly.
So he has just read up on like every surface level scientific concept, and he just knows how to rotate and mush these things together in a way where it sounds very appealing to you, if this is what you're into. But if you pay
It's that
attention to it long
gif.
enough, it's like,
It's the gif of the rainbow cube, the guy holding like a rainbow cube in front of a mentally challenged person. I'm trying to be nice so YouTube
yeah.
doesn't. It feels like that sometimes. He just knows exactly which cube to use with which emailer, I guess.
I mean, I think you could just like pull so many women if you're good with that kind of like yoga stuff.
I'm
This
sure.
is, I mean, it's no joke
It probably
because
worked better 15 years ago as well, right? Than it does today.
yeah, I think so, but it's kind of like yes and no. I'm not sure where exactly this is, but I mean, I used to work in Oslo where I would commute, and sometimes I would like stay over there, and I would frequent sometimes these kind of like spa type things, like use flotation tanks, and then you would get in touch with people like that, and I'd just be shocked by how many, how much access you get to relatively like high net worth individuals, because there's like
Mm.
always like this guy who was like a stockbroker who had a son, and the son is like completely detached from reality, and he's just there practicing breathing techniques or something, trying to learn to accept his inner integrations. Like it's like this kind of standard Joe DMT bullshit talk,
Sure.
essentially. But it's completely, it's common. Like Mette Marit is talking about it. You have Martha Louise is on that stuff, and like Jonas Gahr Støre's son is like that. I mean, he has like interviews where he's just sitting and talking about like his meditation and breathing, from the what do you call it, the I've lost the words now. I could probably recall them if you
I
presented them to
understand
me. But
what you're going for though. Yeah.
diaphragm. That's the word I was like. You're like trying to breathe from the diaphragm and integrating your aggression, and like his Indian wife or whatever. Like it's if you like you just know a little bit of that stuff, you could get in touch with so many people that are just like 2 or 1 degree of separation away from really rich and powerful people.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, I mean this changes. As I said, I feel like this is changing every day. For once, I was joking before we started the stream. For once, we're not late to a story, and I actually think we might be early because it's unfolding as we speak. So I mean, this is just initial takes. We're probably going to have changed our minds a couple of times, and as you said, there's so much information here that I think if you want to, you can everything is true at once, right? Um, but let's sort of pivot a little bit and attack this from something that's more closer to home, which is of course our crown princess, which has been become a bit of a sort of rallying point almost in this. For some reason, everyone is interested in specifically Norway, although we're not alone in this. But her emails, of course, do not put her in a very good light. Someone asked me about it on Twitter, and I said, we have done a show on a lot of this stuff. I'm not sure if we've talked about her specifically. We talked about the other princess, but my opinion on the crown princess has not changed as a result of this. Is my stance. Let's bring up an image here real fast. So, I mean, this is not a very flattering image, of course, and she's getting a bit old now. But there are talks now of depriving her of her title, which is a real possibility, I think. And I talked to my wife about this last night regarding the sort of like what now stuff. I think a divorce between her and our crown prince is one of the sort of that's one of the smaller fallouts here, right? um, but when it comes to her specifically, and the emails that have been sent between her and Jeffrey Epstein, I can see that tracking with a lot of the things I know about her from secondhand accounts. Now I'm born and raised in the same town that she's from, so she's of the people, right? Our crown prince met her when they were like 26 or something. They got married at late 20s, and um, when she got together with Håkon, which is our crown prince and soon to be king, um, a lot of people around here, a lot of people I knew and know who have worked in bars and stuff like that, all kind of raised an eyebrow because she has a bit of history. Let's say she was a bit of a party girl. There are a couple of nicknames around here that imply that she got around. Um, and her father was a bit of an infamous figure, drug addict, drunk, etc. So everyone sort of felt like, all right, sure, they might be in love, but is this woman really, royalty material? Um, and I'm sure at some point, this has to have been a topic of discussion in, the royal family. Um, but the only person who could possibly put a stop to this at that point is our king, which is Kong Harald. Because when your 25-year-old son comes home and is in love, I mean, there's it's almost not his fault, right? At least for a while until he sobers up again. Um, the only one who can do something is mom and dad at this point. But of course, Harald would never be able to stop him from doing this because Harald himself did it to his father Olaf. He married a commoner himself. Now he got lucky in that he married someone who took the job quite seriously, and I'd say almost in the same vein, not as serious, not necessarily as thoroughly as Queen Elizabeth of England did, but in the same vein, has really embraced the role of the Queen above her own personal station in every aspect. And but something happened with Håkon and everyone sort of below him in the family tree here is that with that generation and Mette-Marit and all that, the idea of the royal station and your private life was suddenly something that was to be sort of separate. And I think that's a big mistake. She also brought with her a kid. She had a kid from before, a kid who's now on trial as we speak for allegedly having um, what's the word people use on TikTok, or is it just grape, or had sexual misconduct with up to four women. He's been he's been caught with drugs many times, cocaine, and stuff like that. He he's essentially sort of like this kid comes from a family of drug abusers, was sort of airdropped into being part of the royal family, which is probably the worst thing you can do to someone like that. I know it's, nature, nurture, but someone who's already probably got a bit of an outrageous personality and has a proclivity for drugs, giving him a bunch of money and status is probably the last thing you want to do. So it's just when you look back at the last, what is it now, 20 years almost, I feel like every family decision that's been made here was the wrong one. And this woman is not very smart. That's all I can say. Uh that's been the thing I've feel like I've seen time and time again is that this woman just doesn't know, what's going on all the time.
Well, I mean, I think I said recently that like the big winners the last week have been the like the conspiratards, the Q-tards who finally got their moment. But the other winners this week is like the misogynists. I feel who were sort of we were right the whole time. It's like if you have a bad intuition about a woman, you should probably just listen to that, even if it's like on the cautious side. I feel like this week it's like, bruh, I try to be like nuanced to try to not fall into this kind of like I don't know, misogyny, manosphere slop, but sometimes you're really feeling it. This what do you call it? Like this is like a thought, the thoughts before the thoughts. Like what are you
Sure.
doing?
Yeah.
You can't like drag this stuff home. It's not wife material, as you say. And I felt that like from the moment I was aware of this woman's existence as like a young teenager or whatever who was sexually frustrated, and who probably didn't like her for those reasons. It's like whatever misogynistic attitude you had, you were completely 100% vindicated about this about this woman forever. And there is nothing to do but maybe, divorce is, like, as you said, the most benign thing that can happen, because it's not going away, right? Maybe they
Yeah,
will, the crown will skip a generation or something. That's also a suggestion I've seen floated
I've
among
heard
some
that as
pundits.
well. I mean, there are rumors of their daughter, which is to be our queen eventually, being uh, being a bit of a party girl herself. But I feel like you could say that about any European royal sort of child. There's always one of them or two of them who engages in parties. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. You
Nothing
can
is
party,
confirmed
but
yet.
you have to at least have like an optics IQ above room temperature, right? You can't just hang
You can't
out with
just
people like
email
this
Jeffrey
and
Epstein
yeah,
when you're lonely in 2010,
and like
right?
drive Epstein around Oslo or something. Like it just doesn't work. Like the nature of their relationship as well is very much, there's like a big, it doesn't seem like she's gonna say anything. She's just come out and said that it was well, it was stupid. I was
Yeah,
really doing
whoops.
stupid of me.
Yeah.
Whoops, whoopsie do.
So yeah, I
But
don't think there is a path out of this that ever leads to this woman becoming a queen, at least not officially, right? She they might be able to pull off that they can still be married, but I don't know. The idea of a monarchy to the Norwegian people is still, pretty good. I think it's dipped like 10% or something, which is understandable, but it's still sort of widely accepted that having a monarchy is nice, but I think a lot of people thinking we should reconsider some of these choices, and maybe some of the rules that have been set here. Um, let's see here. Theo says the sensible centrist knows most women shouldn't be trusted. Um, let's see here.
yeah, no, this is
Uh,
absolutely true. But at the same time, there is a balancing act here when it comes to the performative misogyny. If you can keep women honest, you have to remember to keep men honest as well. Like, I just
yeah,
think it's a
sure.
lot. I just think it's a lot easier to just look at women and kind of see the problem immediately. But there are a lot of guys, in power, in positions of influence with the exact same issues. But like with women, it's just way easier to just point at them and see it. So
Yeah, so we'll get into this article that's discussing it a bit more. As someone said, deprived of his title, it's with the translation, something about the Norwegian language. This sentence wouldn't be gendered, and so Google defaults it to his instead of hers because it doesn't know the gender of who they're talking about. It's a
okay,
weird
so
quirk of the
so
translation.
woke has really been pulled back. I see.
uh, I it's just a bunch of eyes. 6265 says IRL dating sim Epstein edition. Well, I'm sure if you like let an LLM loose on all of the emails and stuff, you could build like a web game where you're playing as Jeffrey Epstein trying not to get caught or something, right? You're just emailing. It's like a visual novel, right? Where you get emails and you have to choose from responses, and if you fail to juggle, money and various resources, you end up in jail. So yeah, if you want to make free money, that's on the table, I guess.
This is the idea, the prompt guy, the idea prompt man,
Yeah, that's me.
giving away gold here.
I'm giving
Hopefully,
away gold.
appreciate it. Then.
Go build it. Um, Nudge Unit says 4chan probably already has that. That sounds correct. Um, let's see here. I'm going to bring up the Norwegian article here on the side because the translation gets quite rough at points. So, could Crown Princess Mette-Marit be deprived of her title? Only one person will decide. The polls show that a lot of Norwegians believe the crown princess should not become queen. Uh, but is it okay, or is it even possible to abdicate as a crown princess? It's storming around Crown Princess Mette-Marit and her contact with the late sexual offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now more now uh, now more people are asking, what are the consequences for this, and what could they have? What consequences could this have for her future role of the monarchy and the crown princess herself? And then there's a quote: what affects her also affects the whole family," says Carla Grimstad. Thank you for the expert commentary. He's worked at the royal court, been a parliamentary politician, and he's written books on the monarchy. This is a formidable crisis for the crown princess, but it's not just that you can get rid of a crown princess without any further consequences, he says. When Crown Prince Haakon and Mette-Marit married in 2001, the king decided that she should be titulated as a crown princess. She has won the title by virtue of marriage. You can't just abdicate as a crown princess. If you're going to have a monarchy, as the majority of Norway wants, you don't get to choose who the royal family should consist of, says the historian, author, and royal house expert Trond Norén Isak. Which is, on paper correct, but I think we can quite easily sort of nudge in a clause about, in matters of non-royal blood, anything goes, right? I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think he lacks imagination, to be honest.
Yeah. It's the king alone who will decide the titles the Norwegian royal family hold and the royal house possesses. Well, yes, obviously. It is unlikely that the king will revoke her title, but it is he who ultimately decides, says Ole Jørgen Skjoldsrud Hansen, TV2's royal house expert. Grimstad believes that that it would be an incredible amount of pressure required for the crown princess to be deprived of her title and public role. It's impossible to construct this universe. It means the end of the royal house, and I don't think we're quite mature enough for that. I don't know. I don't think it would be that big a deal, honestly. Do you
Yeah,
think?
me neither. I don't
I
know
think if she
where this
just
comes from. Maybe
abdicates, they divorce, she gets some sort of payout or something, and her son just disappears from public life. I think
to
I
an
think that would
island
be okay.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that would be unthinkable to a lot of Norwegians, right?
We don't need decapitations. You can just get an exile, I guess. Is that
Get out the old
the thing?
guillotine. Yeah. Can Princess Ingrid Alexandra become our next queen instead? In Norway, inheritance is linear, which means that only someone who's the child of the king or reigning queen, or one who's self been sort of been inherited, gets to inherit the throne. Crown Prince Haakon is the number one in the order to inherit the throne. His daughter, Princess Ingrid Alexandra, is number two, and Crown Princess Mette-Marit is nowhere part of the succession. The Crown Prince may decide himself whether he will abdicate the throne, and then Princess Ingrid Alexandra would be queen. That might also be a play, but that's more harsh. I think it would be better to smooth it over with, like, he just remarries some other royalty or something. And his punishment, I guess, would be to to unfortunately have to live alongside another woman for the rest of his life. That is maybe not of his choosing, but I'm sorry, you got born a prince. That's kind
Yeah,
of just the
I
deal.
think he deserves it, honestly.
Yeah, because
That's the
because
least we
he's
can
sort of
expect.
fucked up just as much here, right? Ultimately, um, problem is they would sell every dirty secret of the remaining royal family to the press. Maybe, I mean, there are ways to work this out.
Non-disclosure agreements, I guess
Yeah,
that's what they call it in the US.
yeah. So, I mean, that's a way forward. Quote: "This is not a good idea because the crown prince has done nothing wrong." I don't think, at some point, how many times, I don't know, like, I don't know how to put this. It's not that he's, legally done anything wrong, but morally, he has shown incredibly poor judgment and sort of an inability to handle these problems as they arose in a manner that has been permanent because this keeps happening, right?
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, if you are the king, it's on you, sort of like. Isn't that like this kind of like biblical worldview as well? Like you, if you, it ultimately ends up with like you have to solve this problem yourself.
But yeah, as I
Nobody
said,
else.
when he
Yeah.
comes, when he comes home to the royal house to present this woman for his mom and dad, the king and queen, in that moment, I don't think he's liable because in that moment he's in love, right? In which it is his father's role to decide whether or not, this woman is fit to be a queen. After they have become married and this woman keeps messing up, how many times are you going to basically let her mess up in these ways, right? At some point, you have to take responsibility for your immediate family fucking up. And then, of course, ultimately, as Tetrarch says, the buck stops at Harald. The reason we're in this mess is because he he can't find it within himself to deny Håkon the moment he comes home with this woman because he did it himself. Although, the woman he chose was of much better stock. Let's say, I'm a bit shaky on the history, but I believe she was from an upper class circle. Um, so it's one of those things where like if you just follow the thread here, the seeds for this were sown 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, right? 50 years ago. So it's considering the scale of the problem, just divorcing them and sort of his punishment being a loveless marriage is actually quite benign, as you say. And it's actually a quite sort of elegant solution, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, he has to. Yeah, maybe he just has to do it. He divorces her. I think it's totally fair. I don't really care if he didn't do nothing. I mean, it sort of doesn't matter if you're the crown prince or the king. If you're royalty, you can't just say that kind of stuff. In my view, like it's not my problem if my wife is like this or something. I mean, if they're gonna behave like that, if that's gonna be the rationale, we can just drop the whole
Then you
thing. I
don't
feel.
want the station of
Yeah.
crown prince. You don't want the role
Yeah.
of king.
No.
And that's fine, but abdicate, right? Go away. I'm fine with abdication if you feel like this is not for you, but that's also the reason why you should probably marry people. If you're the crown prince, you should probably marry people who themselves are princes and princesses, because these people, for good or ill, as much as they can gripe about this being unfair, and woe is me, I was born into this role. You were born into this role. You have been made painfully aware of what this entails from the day you were born. And if you choose to abdicate, that's okay, but you do so willingly, knowing sort of as much as possible of about what this entails. If you take a commoner who's lived a very different life, right, until she's almost 30, and you put her in this role, of course she gets bored or lonely or whatever and starts emailing randoms, right? It's, in hindsight, it's almost more sad than it's evil or whatever. Um, but failing to sort of see that makes me sort of fear for the entire royal construct here.
Yeah, I don't know when they went away from arranged marriages. I think maybe that was the problem. I get that inbreeding is an issue, but like, damn, this love marriage stuff is not working. If you're bringing home just like reality TV people, then we can't have nice things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just don't have any sort of logical um problems saying that the rules don't apply. Like you can use one logic for royal families and one logic for other families. That's totally fine in my in my worldview, right? Um, I don't know why this has to be like he's done nothing wrong. Well, I mean, no, he did because he's not like just some random guy. It's right. He's a hard work oh, boohoo. He's a hard-working man who spent his life preparing for this position. Well, then he's done a pretty shit job, if you ask me. He believes Crown Prince Haakon appears to be suitable to become king. Princess Ingrid Alexandra is not ready to become head of state. I can agree with that. She's still being educated and she has limited experience with royal duties. Fair enough. I don't think most people would agree that we should just, skip straight to Ingrid Alexandra. We would have to do something, right? Can the crown princess lose her royal role in the royal house? The crown prince and the crown princess have been married for almost 25 years, and they're celebrating their silver anniversary on 25th of August this year. TV2's royal expert feels that the crown prince and crown princess, through interviews and public appearances, has emerged as a mutually supportive married couple. From the outside, it seems like they are standing by each other through thick and thin, even in very demanding situations. Well, the problem is that one of one of these two parts of this marriage is creating a lot of more demanding situations than the other one. Um, I can't remember. Has Håkon ever had like a big scandal or anything like that that wasn't because of something Mette-Marit or her son did or something?
Nope. He is a good one, but
Yeah,
he's being
he's a
dragged
sensitive
by an
young man
anchor.
who's been harangued by by someone. We have to save him. From the outside, it looks like there are okay. I said that. Uh, in the royal houses of Europe, several royal marriages have ended in divorce before. Back then, Prince Charles divorced himself from Diana in 1996. She lost. This is weird translations, but she lost pretty much everything except her title as the Princess of Wales. After 25 years in this institution and in this role, you won't be able to get rid of the public position as crown princess, Mette-Marit, says Schulzwood Hansen. No serious people would suggest that the crown prince should be made to divorce his wife. As long as she's married to the crown prince, she will be a crown princess, and she will become a queen when he becomes king. There's nothing we can do about that. I mean, unless you want to do something about it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's nothing we can do about it unless we do something about it. This
just
is
do
the
it,
like,
dude. You can just do
don't
things.
why
It's
why are you so obsessed
2026.
with pressing that switch, dude? Right? Stop trying to press the switch that solves our problem. Dude, all you're talking about is pressing the switch. Stop being weird about that switch. um, Crown Princess Mette-Marit has been open about her serious health conditions. Right, she has like some lung. It's not cancer, but it's some weird stuff, which has led to her to be commissioned. She has had fewer commissions on the behalf of the royal house in recent years. Whether she is capable of being a queen in the future without having any responsibilities, duties, or assignments, uh, Isaac's and means is not gonna work.
This is like the
Uh,
perfect way out, though. She has like
it
I
is.
don't know, the English translation is like lung fibrosis or something, which
Yeah,
is like typically something you see in like 70-year-old chain smokers before they die. Like,
which says a little bit about her
so
past, by the way.
yeah, I mean, this could be some like genetic freak stuff, but it's hard to imagine that her lifestyle had nothing to do with this. So this is a bit difficult, but it's like, oh shit, bro, I got this. I mean, it's typical when you try to fire people from a company or something, and they want to save
Yeah. Oh
face.
no,
Just
I
like
have to step
say,
away from my royal duties
I have
due
like
to
a,
the.
I have a disease, bro. I'm sick or whatever, and I can't do this job, so I have to abdicate. Have a good time, pretend to save face. It's like what do you call it? Gift wrapped. You have like fortune, unfortunate.
Yeah.
What is the English term for that? I don't know.
Sorry, I don't know either. Maybe someone in the comments can give it to us. Um, that she would retreat from royal duties would look quite strange. It would have made it difficult for the royal house and would be to deny the role of the king's spouse. I don't know, dude. Like, that seems perfectly reasonable to me in this situation. By the way, this guy who's talking is named Isaacson, like Isaac, but the translation is having a real hard time of it. It said it's called him Isaac Does, and it's called him the Axis of Ice, which is my new band name, by the way. um, so Isaacson thinks that the king and the royal house is dependent on having a working queen by his side, just someone being able to perform duties. Queen Sonia has been hugely important to the king and the royal house, both personally and for, quote, the company, with her incredible capacity for work. And that's true. Like, as I said, she's taking her role incredibly seriously and is using her influence, I think, greatly within Norway as a patron of arts, as as a figure in a lot of areas. And she's doing it with a certain elegance that we're lucky to have. Um, Reviving the monarchy is also possible. Sorry, basically removing the monarchy is also possible. This has to be done through the stewarding for about 2 periods, with about 2/3 of a majority. So you need 2 votes over 2 periods
So
with basically two
I
different
think
governments.
it already put it to a vote, and the
Yeah, and it was like a
majority is
seventy
against it.
percent
So
no or
yeah.
something. Yeah. And I agree. I think the idea of the monarchy is something we should keep. I don't want to remove that. Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Sture has asked the Crown Princess to answer questions about her contacts with Epstein. From Noreen Isaacson believes the Crown Princess has to tell the people, to be able to rebuild trust. Quote, the only thing you can do now is answer all questions. When the Prime Minister has urged her to tell her version of the story, it is more or less an order. It is the people who are the royal family's employers and for whom they are responsible. The Evening Post has not received any responses from the royal castle, I guess the royal castle is like is it Windsor, they say in England, when they're talking about like the estate, whether the crown princess will make her account public.
So
All right,
what are the polar market odds of this actually happening? I mean,
I don't know.
there's just like no, you can have this press conference, but there's like nobody's going to be satisfied by any answer. I think she gives to any
What can
question.
she possibly
Yeah,
say that's going to make this okay?
yeah, exactly. This it's you can sit and give some vagary answers or something. It just okay. That just creates 10 more questions. This is what it seems like with everything. So I think the dominant strategy is just to say nothing. But of course, that also creates a bunch of questions. I'm just wondering, like, if there weren't any PR people inside of the royal house who thought about this ahead of time, like surely they knew that these were going to be dropped at some point, and they would have thought out some strategy to get ahead of this. But I assume that maybe she just lied about it. They weren't aware because she hasn't disclosed it
Yeah.
to the people who should know.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's I don't see a way out of this. That's all, right? All right. Is that enough Epstein for today? I'm
I
sure we're
think
going
that's
to
a
talk
good
about it
good
next
enough
week, right?
good enough dose of Epstein. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be back for more
There's going to be
in
more,
7 days.
and currently, journalists are combing through the files, at least in Norway, looking for any and all Norwegian politician, and every day, more stuff is being dug up. So we're uh, probably gonna do something about that next week with the meme of like the Norwegian octopus that's controlling the world, or
Well, yeah,
whatever.
there was a lot
The,
more of
the the
that
image you
than
keep
you would
posting every
expect.
time someone says it's the Norwegians, you repost with that image.
The secret ruler. I mean, well, it's become, what is this word people keep saying, salient. I feel like, yeah, the Norwegian presence on the world stage has become more salient in moments like this. It's the Norwegian presence in like the Trump cabinet is also not lost on me, by the way. So there's there's something there. It's like more Norwegian than Jewish at this point. Um,
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll next week. I guess we could look at Torbjørn Jagland and
Yes.
that if these diplomats, the WEF types,
Yeah,
the
Jagland is,
NGO
is probably
complex.
first, as Tetrarch is saying, he might be the first scalp in this. He's not looking very, very good in the emails. So we're going to change gears entirely. And I want to read to you all um, a little bit from a Substack called The Wayward Rattler, someone who calls himself Brad Pierce, who's done essentially like a collection on the ideas and musings of Twitter's Drukpa Cunley, one of the best post irony, post truth, whatever you want to call post. What is the word that Jordan Peterson always uses? Um,
Postmodern, as a
Postmodern uh, tweeters, seaters of our time, in my opinion, and a level-headed pragmatist and the creator of basically fineism. So this is a huge Substack. So I won't be able to read all of it. Like, look at my scroll here. It's like it's insane. But what I thought I'd read from, and we could discuss, is basically fineism defined and the challenges to basically fineism, which is I think is a very good, again, part of Drogba's style is a bit that it's one of the things where like I feel if someone asked him to write a book, he'd say no because the work of art he's creating is sort of the set of tweets. That's the way I'm sort of feeling about it. So this is until now the best sort of source of, I guess, compiled information um, from what Drogba Cunley is proposing. All right, so basically fineism defined. The original definition which Cunley gave us for basically fineism is as follows: a real-world political settlement reached using technocratic and pragmatic policy levers to resolve most serious issues, especially immigration, which, while not solving all problems, is a realistic and conceivably achievable compromise, and so basically fine. This is, at its core, a belief in the importance of the principle of compromise. It is also a belief in trying to enjoy your life without the personal being swallowed by the political, the inevitable result of any system where ideology is paramount. Once again, the point of a commonwealth is in the name. And instead of pursuing weird and impossible goals or viewing everything as some sort of deranged competition, the focus should be on making things work well, not just the proverbial trains running on time, but general well being. Often, when watching a crazy TV drama, I feel somewhat exhausted and thought, quote, I would like to see these people live normal lives instead of some insane thing being introduced again and again at the beginning of every season. Of course, for a TV show, I actually wouldn't, but that is how American life is, and it's no way for a man to live. I I made that comment, I think, like, when I first started YouTubing stuff, I went on Jay Burton's channel, and it's almost like when soldiers come back from, like, the Middle East, they talk about sort of having, like, a new form of PTSD where it's not necessarily that you've been through specific um, situations that have left a mark, but it's that you've been in a situation where you're high strung for so long that you've essentially just permanently damaged your psyche and nervous system. And in a political sense, without living there, that's how it feels to look at America sometimes. Where you're just like, how long are you guys going to be able to be high strung this long before it all just breaks? Um, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I mean, you see it all the time. I feel like some degree it is like PTSD country, permanently brain destroyed already in a sense. But how long can it last? I don't know. Surprisingly long. Like you see some of these like drug addicts on the street. A lot of them are really old. Like then you'd be
I don't
surprised how
mean to
long they can
laugh,
sort
but
of
it's yeah, the idea of an old drug user in a sense is that's a recession indicator, isn't it?
yeah, I think so. But I mean, that you'd be surprised at how resilient people are in certain
Sure.
cases, and how long partial dysfunction can work, as long as the thing with the United States is that this whole dialogue has broken down. Trust has to some extent broken down. Like the ability to do anything constructive politically seems to have broken down, and the system has kind of just calcified around a couple of institutions that seem to tick along good enough. But there are things in the United States that seem to work, at least on paper, if you look at
Sure.
productivity, for example. And it's
Oh
easy
yeah.
to just like
Yeah.
scoff at that stuff, but it does seem to me, at least if you look at just overall production in the economy, that it's no joke. The sort of American economic engine, like it works well enough to deliver stuff
Sure.
on various levels to enough
I think
people
it
to
could be a
provide,
lot more efficient though. I feel like they're powering it a lot with just raw manpower.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course they could be more efficient, but it's still like you're comparing it to the rest of the world. They still seem to be outdoing most countries in terms of just energies. So there is still enough things that are working there, but there's like an asymmetry between things. It's not like it's all equally broken. Something seems to be working well, other things are complete trash. And it's the question is like how bad does one thing have to get before everything else goes
Yeah,
belly
before
up? How
it all just
dynamic?
tips over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, Americans have historically always had dynamism, right? And that's something to
Oh yeah.
never
Yeah.
you can never discount that. It's like even if people who do stupid stuff, if they have enough energy, they have enough like dynamism to adapt, they seem to always be able to bounce back somehow.
Maybe.
I'm more
I would
yeah.
say, for the people who watched some of the videos on AA's channel this week where I featured, I mean, I'd say that's the blessing and the curse of the Americans. Yeah, it saves them from ruin, but it's also what invites it.
Yeah, there's something to think about.
Not
But
to
yeah,
be
I don't know.
giga brained here, right? But that's
Very
just what I
zen.
feel about it. Yeah. The last semi-normal time we had in America was, I believe, the mid-Clinton era before the Lewinsky scandal, and even then they were hyping up the whole country about a war with neo-Nazi paramilitaries after burning a bunch of children to death at Waco. A crucial component of basically fineism is also competent governance. In the United States, this is very difficult because since 1965, the country has largely been based on racial spoils system with ever increasing numbers of minorities. Basically, fineism can't really be implemented with a vast state regulatory apparatus staffed by aggrieved minorities overseeing the country. Instead, it requires a spirit of cooperation whereby working for the government is seen as an honorable job, but where the government also don't spend all of its time bothering the citizenry about nonsense. It is key that some trust needs to be put in administrators with the expectation that to maintain the moderate standards of quote of mostly competent pragmatism capitalized in their position and that they can be fired if they do not. A degree of faith must be put in the public as well. There has to be a sense of shared purpose where the public as a whole wants things to go well instead of wishing things would fail, as it would prove a political enemy wrong.
That's a good point. I think, yeah, the kind of like civil rights gives me that stuff is like clearly something that's not working. But another side of that coin is really the portions of the American white population that are stuck in this kind of very NIMBY-ish non-political
Sure,
solution
but
mode,
I
right?
think
Which is I don't
this
know
is what's kind of
yeah.
interesting is that I get the feeling from a lot of the things someone like Ruckba Cunley makes, a lot of the times he has Europe and Britain in focus when he's doing it. Now, this guy is an American who's writing this, so he's of course applying a lot of American examples. But you'll see that he's talking a lot about Europe here, or Drukpa when he's talking about these things, which I think is an important distinction to make. Is that maybe some of these things that are sort of proposed here, they won't work, right?
Well,
Or there'll be a
I
mismatch, right?
I don't know if they'll work if there'll be a mismatch, because in the United States you see kind of absolutely no attempt to even try to solve certain problems politically, and that's kind of part of it. Like you have part of these kind of like minority groups are only politically like completely myopically interested in like trying to advance whatever next
Sure.
program or something. But you also have like a generation of boomers who are like the richest old generation in the world, like ever, and their political mantra is that political solutions are essentially bad. Like they just don't believe in using politics to solve problems. And like, I mean, that's where you get to say like the infrastructure debates in the United States, for example, if they want to talk about funding like public transit or like walkable areas or anything like that. It's like fuck you, buy a car. Essentially, that's their solution. Like, okay, well, you want to have like public education? Well, fuck you, go get a loan with some private lender at 13% interest.
I think it
You
really
want
depends on
healthcare?
where you live.
Well, you want
That's the only
healthcare, kind of
thing.
like fuck you,
Yeah.
go buy healthcare from a private insurer. This is like this is not something we're going to try to solve politically. You buy that yourself. It's the individual fixes that issue. That's kind of been the kind of default mode. And
Yeah, yeah.
if that's your approach to every single issue, is that this okay? The individual has to be virtuous and pay money to fix this themselves. If you're well, it's like the gun debate as well, right? The problem if if you have a dispute or something, or some security issue, then the solution, you buy a gun yourself and you fix the problem. If that's your solution to every issue, then you're not getting basically fineism.
No, because you're like arms racing every citizen against each other, essentially, literally and metaphorically. um, so here's a classic Drukba Cunley edit. The first situation is things feel off, but I'm not a right wing extremist. Tram is dirty and bike lanes are full of youths on e scooters. You have 150 euros in your pocket. Yusuf 24 Talahons everywhere. There's trash on the streets. Delivery drivers speak Jub Jub language and don't look like their profile picture on the app. The vibes feel off. And what's Oh, it's just trash. Okay. And then basically fine is there are new tram lines and bike lanes have been cleaned up. You have 200 euros in your pocket. The Talahons have mysteriously disappeared. There are clean and pleasant streets. The delivery drivers are university students who speak your language. The vibes are sensible and not quite intense. So that's kind of the the thesis here,
This
right?
is what we believe in. This is what my poster is, like the political manifesto of our
I mean,
time.
I went so far as to change my bio on Twitter now to basically finest. So take it or leave it, I guess. It needs to be emphasized that basically fineism can improve any country, but it is extremely difficult in a multicultural society with rapidly changing demographics. In part, this is because that relies on a belief that your country is tied together with an ideology that will be adopted by others who come there. which mandates an ideological polity. It is commonly said that the United States is the world's only, quote, propositional nation, which is nonsense for several reasons. Firstly, it doesn't mean anything, so it's nonsense in the most basic way. Further, plenty of countries are based on, quote, ideas of some or other, of some sort or other. For example, the French republics were all based on an idea, but Bolivarian republics are quite similar to the United States in their founding. Um, Norwegian state itself is quite similar to United States in a lot of the ideas. I mean, basically, a lot of our founding fathers were fanboys of a lot of the American founding fathers. Um, Modern Turkey was based on applying Enlightenment ideals to make a new secular republic out of what had been an empire. Quote, propositional nation is just something very serious people, something, quote, very serious people, which is another Drukbakandiism, like to say to midwits in support of importing infinity immigrants. The other matter is that accepting that many immigrants requires a lot of ambition and an ideology of constant rapid growth instead of being happy with modest but reliable and consistent improvement over time. Though basically fineism can work in the context of any existing political and social settlement, it appears to be the most adapted to social democracy. I think this is because successful social democracy is already relatively non-ideological is already a relatively non-ideological compromise, in that it only works well when the people understand that a free market in goods must be allowed to function in order to fund a welfare state. America is torn between oligarchs who promote regulations if they harm their competitors and anti-capitalists who wants to regulate everything to death. This is rarely discussed in American politics, but businesses can generally handle high taxes much better than they can handle excessive regulations, because you can simply price things for taxes, whereas excess regulations badly damage productivity while also wasting a ton of money and employing swarms of unnecessary bureaucrats and lawyers to leech off the productive economy. And this is where sort of, for Europe's sake, a lot of the bullshit sort of bureaucracy around EU has to change at some point. Like that has to happen, but I think it will happen naturally. At some point, the numbers aren't going to be, we're not going to be able to ignore the numbers, and we're going to have to scale back the regulations of the EU, I think.
EU plan truster. It's
I don't
the
know if
new
I'm going
term.
to say
Yeah.
it's as a plan truster. I mean, best case, the EU as it is now doesn't survive, right? Um, it will have to change into a more streamlined form.
Yeah,
That
we
is,
hope hope for the best.
if Europe as a bloc is to be a geopolitical entity, it has to do that, right? It's not going to be able to compete with China and the US, for example, on geopolitical scale, or even be allies with them, unless it streamlines itself in that sense. So I'm not saying I'm pro EU. I'm just thinking I don't see another way out of this, and I don't want to bet on the Americans, and I don't want to bet on the Chinese. So
Wise words.
um, naturally, you need to say more than that. Well, I when I say naturally, I mean we're gonna we're gonna run up against natural limitations of the regulation, like just natural economic realities. That's yeah. Um, let's see here. Where were we? Bureaucratically further, if a business is allowed to operate freely but in a relatively high tax environment, the money can actually improve the public wealth, I guess, instead of just employing those whose job it is to get in the way of economic productivity. Finally, successful social democracy already requires a cohesive, relatively uniform population to thrive and a competent governance to administer the benefits. And you're lucky, Ludwig, because you and I live in I think it's like somewhere between like 90 and 95% European country. So,
Yeah, if you're very generous.
no, I think I mean
But
like just Europeans, right?
yeah,
So, okay, maybe we're counting Ukrainians or something when I say that.
yeah,
So I
we
mean,
can.
we can have discussions about whether or not Ukrainians are white, but
Yeah,
you
the-
know, if I
I
feel
think
like we're starting to split hairs, right?
I think they qualify before the Italians anytime. But yeah, I won't split hairs.
Um, let's see here. Dropback Conley post here saying that you have just discovered what you believe is 95% likely to be the correct perfect ideology that finally completes political science, but you can only choose one group of people to enact it as a proof of concept. Who do you choose? Number one, your ideology, but as Dominicans, or two, your ideology, but with Nords. Um, Charles Murray. This is regarding a Charles Murray quote who says, "I got a laugh from a Swedish audience, which is hard to do, by saying almost any system of government will work if you're governing Swedes." But that was in the 80s, so that's what he's replying to. I mean, I remember going to the Karlstage last year, and I was talking to Carl Benjamin about something, where we're comparing notes essentially on how things work in different countries in England and in Germany and in Norway. And at some point he was like, "Yeah, but you can't just say things work where you live because you're, you're a country of like 4 million white people. You can do whatever you want." um, which I guess is true to a certain extent. It's hard
Yeah,
to understand how different the world is outside
I
I'll
get
admit
it, but
that.
also not right. There's part of that that is what do you call it, like a thought terminating cliche or something,
Yeah,
which
sure.
is really kind of like, okay, you try to have a certain dig into what works and what doesn't work, and you can just say that
Well,
if you have enough whites you can do it, but somehow it's like we have to qualify white very narrowly in that sense, like
sure.
Eastern Europeans have to basically be chucked.
But it seems to
You have
be
to explain like why, say like why Poland is like really good but Romania sucks, for example,
yeah.
or certain like Eastern European countries that are not like immigrant heavy, but you know, at least in the American context, when you talk about whites, or you have some kind of like Anglo conception of what white is, then you can
Sure.
certainly find like majority white countries that are not great. I think Eastern Europe is are one of them. You could Southern Europe is you know, some other cases where things aren't, you know, super duper in terms of governance or growth
No,
or
the Spanish are currently,
productivity, right?
nuking themselves actively. So, that's fun. Sure, we can argue about what, but I think the point here is that, if you have if you're 90%, 95% sure you figure things out, what do you want? And it turns
This
out,
point stands. This point
yeah,
stands perfectly. It's like you think that the Nords are going to be a better case study for whatever idea that you're going to have, but that also remains to be seen. Like what you think wouldn't work. It's like as a sort of counterfactual. If you just pick out of a fruit basket of ideologies, and you can find some ideology that probably wouldn't work with Nords. So it's kind of like
that might be
hard
true.
theocratic system or something. Like you like try to do Norwegian North Korea or something. Do you think that would work swimmingly? I mean, I could probably imagine some
Yeah,
systems that actually wouldn't work so well.
yeah, maybe not. Yeah. The problem that the Swedes run into is that they think their system of government is so great that anyone can adapt to it. So they invite a lot of third worlders they feel bad for to join in. In reality, a large part of why their system works so well is because the people they are governing are Nords. Well, again, uh, if we just look past sort of, as you said, the thought terminating ethnicity argument, I mean, we do have that issue. We have covered many times how our government is very weak to immigrants because there are so many things that are based on trust that we don't see until they're tested in this manner, right? As we covered, like the police being frustrated with not being able to stop like forced marriages because if the family just prioritizes the patriarch, the police can do nothing because at some point we have some built-in degree of trust that the state should actually be able to take your children from you, right?
Yep.
But it turns out you can just say no. And if everyone in the family says no, then there's nothing you can do, right? Because why would anyone lie about being abused? That's just something that our system doesn't account for. And when you say it out loud, it sounds insane, but it's worked until now, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think
Uh,
you reach certain thresholds or some like unsolvable problems that I never thought a person would think like this type
Exactly.
issues like
Yeah.
this is not something we've ever accounted for.
What we're seeing in Minneapolis and Sweden itself is what happens when Scandinavian social democracy meets diversity and incompetence. It is also well established in political science that people are more likely to support welfare programs if they perceive the people receiving benefits as being like themselves, which is presumably why the libs are always saying, quote, you have more in common with an illegal immigrant than you do with a billionaire. Regardless, the most important reason that this system can produce basically fine results is that social democracy, in many ways, removes the bottom from society, which not only makes the public less stressed, but it does much to prevent the formation of a restive lumpenproletariat prone to become the masses who support extremist ideologies. It is important to emphasize again that, though, that basically fineism can improve the politics of almost any place if it's possible to implement. And even an ideology so aggressive as radical Islamism can be tempered by embracing basically fineism. And this has to be, I guess, another Drukbak on the edit. So this is total mess with Salafist characteristic. People dress really Islamically. People do and say Islamic things in a really over the top, crazy way. People are total nut jobs with Islamic characteristics. State is a really Islamic in a crazy way. State is total mess and is at war or in constant low level conflict. Basic functions of state barely exist, and the population hates it. Alternatively, you have basically fine with Salafist characteristics. People dress a bit Islamically. People do and say Islamic things, but not in a really over the top crazy way. People are mostly normal with Islamic characteristics. State is a bit Islamic y, but not in a crazy way. State is not an amazing, it's not amazing, but is functional and okay run given what it has to work with, and not at war. So it's basically, so it's Islamically basically fine. It's just, it gets really funny, but that's what I like about Kunli and that stuff. It's funny, but it also gets sort of the point across, and it challenges you sometimes a little as well. Challenges to basically find us. We don't have a lot more time, so we'll see how long we get, how far we get. Challenges to basically findism. The challenges to basically findist governments are several, particularly in the modern world. It is necessary to consistently work towards the public good while accepting the limitations of public policy and the resources available. The core of American progressivism, for example, is the belief that the combination of scientific project progress and active government can solve the eternal problems of humanity, which can only be managed. Basically, fineism requires the public acceptance of modest and reasonable goals, so excessive ambition and ideology are great dangers, as are things which scare the public. It is commonly better to do nothing at all if one cannot act with a reasonable degree of certainty that it will provide an improvement, be that immediately or as part of a process which the public can understand or believe in. So, number one, ideology maxing. Ideology is the greatest opponent of basically fineism, as should be clear by now. The stronger the ideology, the greater the threat. Conley defines ideology maxing as follows: the propensity to act to maximally optimize the priorities and ends of an ideology with an almost telescopic focus to the extent that other important real world considerations and priorities that need to be balanced against these goals are ignored or maligned. Governments, by their nature, have limited resources, financially, in terms of manpower, and in terms of what they can ask the public to support to achieve their goals, commonly known as political capital. To ideology max involves not properly assessing the costs, the missed opportunities, and everything else necessary to pursue your ideology. To Stalin, the mass starvation of peasants was worth it to collectivize farms, though this is an extreme example. The Germans are the most prone to this failing. You may remember in War and Peace, Tolstoy gives an extended explanation of German military theorists and says that they are so in love with their theory that even if it doesn't work, they are delighted because they just see it as proof that their theory wasn't followed or that it was a way to improve upon their theory. America being a heavily Germanic country, we too are prone to this. It remains something of a mystery why the Biden administration adopted an extremist open borders ideology when Joe Biden had a 45-year record of supporting border security. It was surely partially to do the opposite of the last guy. But this provides a clear example of the devastating impact this can have on the country, on his party, and on even further increasing acrimony between the political sides. Mass immigration is inherently, but that's also when we talk about, like, from the European perspective, uh, the conversation isn't entirely sort of like on, oh, Trump is a weirdo. It's kind of like, well, what if the next guy is a weirdo too? Because the country is just weirdo maximizing, right?
Yeah, that is kind of the problem, is that it's not just the guy, but the system who created the guy will create another guy, and another. I mean, there's something particularist about Donald Trump that you can't recreate, right? There's
Sure.
I don't know if you want to say like great man of history, but he at least a man of history. There's certain like particular things about him, but the structural dysfunction is not unique, I think, for him.
Yeah.
So they will continue to produce weirdos, and if you want to acknowledge that or not, I don't know. But it's a challenge to basically fineism to pretend that
That they
American
won't. Yeah.
American weirdo leaders aren't like that.
Yeah. Mass immigration is inherently a form of ideology maxing because it is the belief that, contrary to evidence, the values of your society, such as they are, will integrate infinity people from all over, and that you can make the public share this perspective despite that mass immigration has not been popular among the native residents at any point in history. The reason reductio ad absurdum arguments are seemingly effective when arguing about public policy is that no policy actually works when taken to its extreme. They only work when implemented in a reasonable fashion. Of course, knowing this, those arguments lose their power in most instances. The mass immigration ideology is primarily supported by repeating the phrase, diversity is our strength, which is a meaningless and clearly untrue statement. However, having become a core part of their ideology, its adherents find it unchallengeable and thus will do any crazy thing in support of, quote, diversifying all areas of public life, which has done much to promote the, quote, enshittification we will get to below. While it is good to have principles, making government work properly requires flexibility, and you don't want to go full Teuton. This is a Drukbakandi classic. Um, this is a bunch of German leaders from throughout the years and some funny windmills, etc., saying that we are reaching levels of pure ideology that have never been reached before. This is Teutonic excellence. How can the rules be wrong? The rules are the rules, and etc. and etc. Um, I hate nuance is one of them. Um, and this was very challenging when I went to the Karlstage because a lot of us who weren't from Germany were, the theme was road to rebirth or something. So a lot of us had a lot of, maybe ideas, a way of looking at things in in uh, in a in not necessarily positive light, but in a sort of like, let's, what if we tried this? What if we tried this? What if we try looking at it like this? But the Germans sort of met it all with like, yeah, but we have to think about it more. And what if it doesn't work? And it's like, that's
Well,
not the
isn't
point.
it
The
like
point is we have to start doing something, right? um,
the Germany Jack? You've seen that. We
yeah,
don't do that in Germany.
yeah. But what if it doesn't
Pri-
work? Yeah.
privatized healthcare. We don't do that in Germany. We don't have guns in Germany.
Another good example of ideology is everything related to quote unquote climate change and net zero. It was obvious that this would be disastrous while failing to achieve any benefits. But they all plowed right ahead. And of course, high energy prices and reduced industrial production make life worse for everyone instead of keeping life basically fine. The irony is that assuming climate change is a real problem in the future is the best way to deal with it by the irony is that assuming climate change is a real problem in the future, the best way to deal with it is by having a strong economy and by being flexible instead of adhering to this destructive ideology in pursuit of dubious goals. This should not be a difficult decision. Another Drukba Conley tweet: recurring problems, societies that are basically fine but otherwise a bit boring, or that have problems which could be mostly fixed without excess radicalism, are hijacked by totalizing ideologies with wacky end goals that don't work in real life because they're just too tempting. You have John Lennon singing Imagine, you have Stalin, etc., etc.
There is a map there.
Oh,
Maybe I
what
don't
is this a
understand
map
that
of?
reference in the on the
It's too
right
small for me
center.
to see what it
Yeah.
is, but it seems to be.
A meme
Is
for
it East
ants.
Germany?
I thought so too. I just not sure if there was some very specific thing here that I.
This it looks like a war plan for something in Germany. Um, the debate over the invasion of Sicily in oh, Thucydides, the Peloponnesian War, I probably murdered that, is one of the most distressing moments in history in that it is obvious that they're making a drastic, unforced error. This is what's called really obviously bad ideas. This is a bit of a hard one to grasp because, of course, hindsight is 2020. Their city has been infected with both avarice and optimism, and on a shoddy pretense, Athens, at its zenith, decides to put all of its resources in an armada to attack Syracuse, partially in the belief that it will lead to rapid imperial expansion, for which they had no genuine need. Nicias makes what would be fairly called a basically finest arguments against this, that after years of war, they should stay home and tend to their own estates and enjoy the blessings of peace. It is, as I said above, about TV dramas instead of starting a crazy new storyline. He suggested that they just live their lives, which were, if anything, better than basically fine. Despite this, they forced him to be the general of this expedition, which becomes an absolute disaster, in part due to his hesitation, but also due to its sheer insanity. It is not clear to me what exact element of humanity causes such behavior. I suppose just the desire for glory. Regardless, many men have failed to learn the lesson and love to set goals with reckless audacity. In many cases, it's not even clear why they should want to do this. Um, this is the obvious. This is a new Drakbakandi tweet. This is the obvious critique of the basically fineism. Sometimes it is really hard to avoid really obviously bad ideas in politics. On the surface, import half the population of Mirpur district, Pakistan, to post-industrial towns in northern England seems like a sensible, sober, and pragmatic policy making. But wait, unbeknownst to you, you're actually getting swept away in ideology without realizing it. It can happen to the best of us. And this is in response to the sheer number of really obviously bad ideas you have to avoid to have a basically fine country is just unreasonable. You can't expect politicians to get should you import infinity Pakistanis and should you turn off the power plants right 100% of the time. Yeah, it's hard to navigate the shallow seas of civilization, right? um, we can keep going, and I think I want to in the future. But I think we're getting to the end of our
We're at
allotted time
90
here.
minutes, and the rules
Yeah,
are the rules.
those are the rules. But I think we'll keep this. I want to read this more because people are saying this is just I just want to grill. This is just boomerisms. It is actually much like once you have the complete picture. I don't know. I don't know how to say it because that's the thing with Conley is that he's not necessarily selling. He's not selling like one truth here. He's just selling. He's just selling an idea. Like he's just selling a feeling that
Yeah,
I think a lot
my,
of
my
people
read
just
read
like
on this is you're trying to adapt a lot of these ideas from like why nations fail into more of a post-liberal
exactly.
frame.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But it's sensible centrism sort of distilled into one direction, I guess. It's a very good read. You should check it out if you want on your own time. Um, what about the will to the infinite? Sure, but the thing is, and this is sort of the problem here is that we're not in that mode of being, right? It's sort of why I wanted to talk about Rene Guénon when I went on AA before I talked about. I think that video comes out today. Basically, this is what we're talking about in the last video. Is that you can't like if you start talking about like Spengler or any sort of like capital T traditionalist, yeah, okay, we're all screwed. And sure, we can believe that philosophically. I can understand that argument and sort of make peace with it. But then someone also needs to make sure the trains run on time. And I would rather live a place where that happens because we're able to sort of keep two thoughts in our head at the same time, right? We can understand the level of philosophy but we can also understand reality and have. I think I pulled out, like I said in my chat with AA, I said let's pretend to play Hearts of Iron 4, and we make like a custom character, and we call him like European Lee Kuan Yew, right? Who understands both of these things at the same time. I don't see that as a big obstacle, honestly. That's all I have to say, really. Okay. Lollypath, anything you want to say before we leave?
No, I'm good. I thought it was a good article, and I'm looking forward actually to finishing finishing it next
Yeah.
next week. We'll see if there's some new developments on the Epstein case that we weren't aware of. But yeah, we'll look more into Terje Larsen and these Norwegian diplomats,
We're going to do that.
politicians, and
It's
like
sort of
what
happening as we
exactly their role
speak,
is. Yeah.
and it's not pretty. Yeah. Thank you for thank you for listening. Thank you for chatting. Cyber Ninja Zero says this stream was basically fine. Thank you. That's all I aim for. We don't provide anything other than basically fine streams. If you want anything more insane than that, you have to go elsewhere. I think if you've stuck around this long, you don't expect, you know, over the top theatricity from us. All right. I linked in the chat my latest chat with AA that came out just a couple of hours ago. If you enjoyed some of the sort of basically finest stuff we talk about here, you can sort of get a bit of that there. If you didn't get to listen to my speech at the Karlstag last year, it's a little bit. I'm not going to say it's a replacement for that talk. I would urge you to buy the book if you want that, but it touches on some of the same points. If you haven't heard any of those videos I did, you can check those out. I think they just got published over the course of this week. The first one is about, I called it Rene Guénon versus America, which flows into, you know, why the birth rates are collapsing and how that's a good thing. You know, how I learned to, what's the title? How I stopped worrying and learned to love the falling birth rate, I guess would be the title. And the last one would be about how Europe is unable to save its democracy, that our future is undemocratic, but also why that's a bit of a good thing, because there needs to be a reckoning on a lot of different planes to be able to get back to a basically fine society. Tetrarch says, what about the Civil War? I've been promised a Civil War for years now. Yeah, it's not looking too good. At least not in Europe. It's not looking too good for the Civil War.
2 weeks. 2
Yeah,
weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. Next week, for sure. When the Bitcoin falls to zero and Satoshi Nakamoto is revealed, Wotan himself will descend and the Civil War will commence. Okay. I think that's everything. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. As I already said, we will be back next week. And until then, have a great rest of your evening and a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.